Tonight on your STV News, a review's launched which could lead to a radical overhaul of the Scots legal system. Cornerstones of Scots law, like an accused's right to silence and the need for corroboration, are all up for discussion. Good evening, I'm Norman MacLeod with the STV News at 6, live from Aberdeen. Also on the programme, with production on the increase and exports spiralling, we toast the success of the Scotch whisky industry. And can Silver by Nature become the first Scots horse to win the National in more than 30 years? They're the centuries-old cornerstones upon which the entire Scottish legal system stands, but they could soon be consigned to history. A consultation over one of the most radical overhauls of police and court proceedings has begun. But some of the country's top legal experts fear the rights of the innocent may be under threat. David Marsden reports.
For 6 months, High Court Judge Lord Carloway has been peering into the deepest mechanisms of Scottish law. A review was ordered after teenager Peter Cadder won the right for defendants to consult a lawyer while in police custody. It was a ruling imposed on Scotland by the UK Supreme Court, and such a big change, it threatened to bust the system here.
We are therefore having to change our system so far as people in detention are concerned, and also look at all the various checks and balances which had previously been regarded as providing the fairness in the system.
Among those checks and balances is Scotland's unique corroboration law. It says prosecutors must have 2 sources of evidence in order to pursue a conviction, and it's why you always see police officers in pairs. Corroboration has been accused of discouraging rape cases from getting to court because of the his word against mine nature of the crime. But some lawyers say it's also prevented innocent people from facing trial.
I personally don't think there are many flaws in the way that we proceed. I was a prosecutor before I took on my present role, and for example, I found corroboration to be a very helpful thing to have as a prosecutor. It's good to be able to test the evidence of a person complaining that a crime has been committed by looking at external evidence.
Parliament Square in Edinburgh has been the home of Scottish law since the 17th century. Parts of some of these buildings date back to that time, and they have seen an awful lot of change. But what's coming could be the biggest overhaul for hundreds of years. A consultation is now underway. Recommendations could be in front of ministers by the autumn. David Miles on STV News, Edinburgh.
On the election trail today, the First Minister Alex Salmond outlined details of his party's plans for a £50 million Next Generation Fund. On a tour of a Lanarkshire biscuit factory, the SNP leader said the fund was a bridge to the future and would ensure the delivery of high-speed broadband. At a whisky headquarters in Glasgow, Liberal Democrat Treasury Minister Danny Alexander criticised the current Holyrood administration for not doing enough to boost Scottish exports. He pledged that the Westminster coalition would work constructively with the new government to help boost exports and employment levels in the Scottish economy. The Tories will axe the controversial home reports which sellers now have to provide when putting their property on the market. Campaign manager David McCletchie described the reports as madness, given that the housing market was struggling in a demanding economic environment. And Labour had a musical theme. During a visit to Musselburgh Grammar School, Scottish leader Ian Gray outlined details of a new music policy for schools. The £2 million initiative is designed to make sure that pupils can learn to play a musical instrument without being put off by prohibitive fees. The convicted killer who went to court arguing for the right to vote in the Scottish election has lost his case. George McGeoch is serving life for the murder of Inverness baker Eric Innes in 1998. He went to the Court of Session in Edinburgh claiming that European human rights laws entitled him and other prisoners to the vote, but his petition for a judicial review was dismissed. Scottish police and prosecutors have met with the defected Libyan Foreign Minister Moussa Koussa. He's understood to have been an intelligence officer at the time of the Lockerbie bombing. Scottish authorities were keen to speak to him in relation to the ongoing investigation into the 1988 atrocity. Now time for more local news from your area. Here in Aberdeen with news for the north and east is Sharon Donaldson, and in Dundee for viewers in Freeview and Cable with news for Tayside, it's Susan Nicholson.
Good evening. The female friend of a man accused of murdering his first wife in an Aberdeenshire car crash says she was surprised to find out he'd put her down as his next of kin. 47-year-old Joanna Reid told the court she didn't know until today that Malcolm Webster, a former colleague, had named her instead of a close relative. Mr Webster denies murdering his first wife Claire in 1994 by drugging her, crashing his car and setting it on fire. The trial continues. A near miss between an RAF Lossiemouth jet and a light aircraft was partly caused by a dirty windscreen. A report into the incident, which happened over the Cairngorms last October, revealed the Tornado pilot failed to notice the other plane because he had no washer fluid left to clean his windscreen. A spokeswoman for the MOD says aircrew should climb to a high level and then return to base if their forward vision is impaired. A diving support ship with 100 people on board, which ran aground on rocks near Lerwick Harbour, has been refloated. Emergency services were called in to help the Biddy Topaz after it got stranded near the entrance to the Shetland Harbour in the early hours of this morning. Ross Govins reports.
The 2,400-tonne Bibby Topaz was manoeuvring near the entrance of Lerwick Harbour when it got into trouble in the early hours. The diving support vessel with 100 crew on board became stuck on rocks just a few hundred metres from the shoreline. It remained there for several hours before refloating itself.
Bibby Topaz, a diving support ship, was departing from Lerwick in the early hours of the morning, and unfortunately she grounded as she was departing through the north entrance. She was stuck fast overnight. We had an unsuccessful attempt to tow her off with our pilot tugs during the night. But during this morning, the master of the ship managed to lighten the forward part of the vessel, and she has actually refloated herself.
The vessel, which is owned by Aberdeen-based Bibby Offshore, had been heading for the Griffin oil field and is now being inspected for damage. None of the crew were injured in the accident, while there is no sign of any fuel leak. An investigation is now underway. Ross Govins, STV News.
Police have named a man who died after falling into Stornoway Harbour. 38-year-old John McKinnon from Alt Bay in Wester Ross was recovered from the water after the alarm was raised just after midnight. The fisherman was taken to Western Isles Hospital in the town, where he was pronounced dead. A multi-million-pound deal has been agreed in Inverness, which could create over 1,000 jobs. Roxhill Developments will create over 400,000 square feet of the new business park at Inverness Airport. Around 700 jobs are expected to be created in the next 7 years, with the possibility of a further 500 posts within a decade.
We're very excited. We think it's a great opportunity. The company, the business park company, has great partners in Highlands and Islands Airports, in Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and of course the council, who've been very supportive of us. Roxhill has a tremendous reservoir of expertise and skill, and they also have substantial financial resources, so we think we've got a very powerful package to develop the site.
North Sea drilling activity has fallen dramatically in the last quarter, according to new figures out today. A study by accountancy firm Deloitte revealed a 25% drop in activity in the first 3 months of this year. Experts say the winter months are traditionally quieter, but there are fears that a tax hike imposed on oil firms in the last budget could set a downward trend. NHS Grampian are appealing for volunteers for a breast cancer study. They're urging women aged between 60 and 70 to take part in the worldwide study to discover if breast cancer can be prevented. Volunteers will be given a drug which is expected to reduce the risk of getting the disease by up to 80%.
This study is specifically for people who did not have breast cancer, but they had a family member who developed breast cancer. But also for ladies who are over 60, even if they didn't have a family member with that, but for example, they didn't have children, or they had the first child when they were older than 30, that's already a good requirement for them to take part to the study.
Now, don't forget, you can always keep in touch with all the latest stories and updates on our website. And if you have any stories or pictures you might like to send in to us, then do send them in to us at stv.tv/news. And you can contact us directly by texting us on 81441. And you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/STV News.
Now, the Scotch whisky industry is currently enjoying one of its most lucrative periods. With exports booming and production on the increase, the feel-good factor is having an impact right across the sector. Our business correspondent has been to the heart of the industry in Speyside to meet some of those toasting the spirit's growing worldwide popularity.
It seems the whole world wants to raise a glass to Scotch whisky, with exports breaking all records. The value of shipments has increased by 60% since the turn of the decade, and last year alone saw a 10% leap. The amber nectar now contributes more than £100 a second to UK exports.
The continued whisky boom is welcome news indeed here in Speyside. Distilleries have been ramping up their production and millions of pounds have been invested, and that's having a dramatic ripple effect right across the industry.
And at firms like this one in Rothes, the increased demand has put a sheen on their balance sheet. They've seen orders for their stills soar over the last 3 years and expect a further 10% rise in turnover in 2011. And it seems more and more countries want to get in on the action.
Our most recent sizeable contract was in Taiwan. They came to us, it was a food company, who wanted to order a turnkey distillery. We designed the complete distillery here. We built the key component parts in Rothes here. So that contract went very well. The whisky is now winning awards, actually. There is great interest from Sweden, the Far East, Korea, Taiwan, Japan. It's good for Scotch in that they make their own spirit. Scotch is still deemed the upper echelon side, so it encourages them to buy Scotch into their country.
American bourbon once matured in these casks, but now they're in demand for Scotch whisky. At Speyside Cooperage they process around 100,000 a year. The recent feel-good factor has lit a flame under their production. And the icing on the cake was clinching a prestigious award for Visitor Attraction of the Year. It's hoped the growing appreciation worldwide of Scotland's most famous export will drive tourists to their doors, both from home and abroad.
It's different. It's the only working cooperage here with a visitor centre. Visit the distillery and then visit the cooperage. It all knits together, and I think that is part of a visit here in Speyside.
Recent deals signed with South Korea and China mean better protection for the Scotch whisky name. Now moves are afoot to improve trading conditions with India, one of the fastest growing markets, something the industry can really drink to. Cheryl Paul, STV News, Speyside.
Cheryl gets all the best jobs. Time for sport now, and Tyrone, it's a packed weekend.
Yes, Norman, let's start with the SPL, where Dundee United can reignite their chase for third place in tomorrow's Tayside derby with St Johnstone. Elsewhere, Inverness Cally Thistle head to Kilmarnock. Aberdeen host Hibs. Here's Stephanie Daly.
He's out for the rest of the season with an ankle injury, but Sam Parkin is still involved in the build-up to Saints' Scottish Cup semi-final against Motherwell next weekend. Before that, they meet Dundee United in a Tayside derby at Tannadice tomorrow, and the Saints striker is counting on his teammates to find their scoring form at a crunch point in the season.
It just takes someone to go on a little run. We've got players capable of that. There's certainly plenty of competition for places with the likes of Peter McDonald and Colin Samuel, and Stevie May's obviously come on the scene as well. So I think there's people capable of scoring goals. I'm just hoping that someone's going to hit a rich vein of form now, which would be an unbelievable timing.
Elsewhere tomorrow, Celtic host St Mirren, Hearts entertain Motherwell, while Rangers visit Hamilton on Sunday. Stephanie Daly, STV News.
Well, Ross County will play in their second cup final in 2 years this weekend. They face Queen of the South in the Alba Challenge Cup at McDermott Park on Sunday. Jimmy Calderwood will be hoping that cup success could bolster their First Division survival fight.
Well, obviously the priority is the league. That's the biggest thing, you know, because that can affect people's livelihoods and the future of the football club. But it's nice. It's strange sort of way, no pressure on, and you can go out. You know, you're not going to lose 3 points. Or can be. Well, they might go above us because they get a game in hand. They're playing a game. But for ourselves, we can go and enjoy it. The club's got a good record in this tournament.
Now, as we've heard, Dundee United host St Johnstone, but Saints chairman Jeff Brown won't be at Tannadice. He'll be at Aintree, where his horse, Silver by Nature's, among the Grand National favourites. It's 32 years since the last Scottish winner. The latest fashion was in the spotlight on Ladies' Day at Aintree this afternoon. Silver by Nature's getting ready to put his best foot forward there tomorrow. Jockey Peter Buchanan's the man tasked with guiding him over the 30 fences on the gruelling 4.5-mile course.
You need a lot of luck in the Grand National. It's a very difficult race. But going into the race, when you look at the field and go through the other runners, I wouldn't swap him for any other horse in the race. You know, he goes there with a really big shout. And fingers crossed, a bit of luck in running. I hope he'll run a big race.
Silver by Nature's hoping to emulate the achievement of the only other Scottish horse to win the National, Rubstick, who was first past the post in 1979. If he wins, he'll also make another bit of history by becoming just the third grey to do so since the world's greatest steeplechase began way back in 1839. And if you're looking for an omen, 10 of the last 32 winners have been 9 years old. Silver by Nature's hoping to become number 11.
He stays very, very well. He showed that at Haydock the last day when he won over 3.5 miles in very testing conditions, carrying top weight. You know, that was a great performance that day, and he just outstayed his rivals, and he should still be galloping at the end.
However, with Aintree expected to be bathed in sunshine, his hopes could be hampered by the weather.
The sun is beating down. The going is changing all the time. It's now good ground for the Grand National. Silver by Nature needs a mud bath, needs a slog in the mud. It won't get that. A huge disadvantage for Silver by Nature.
With his stable insisting last week Silver by Nature will only run if the conditions suit, they'll be praying for some rain overnight. A final decision on whether he runs will be made tomorrow morning. Well, Britain will go betting crazy tomorrow with a staggering £120 million expected to be punted on the big race. But where's that money going? Well, our reporter Ewan Weems is preparing to place his bet at a bookmaker's in Aberdeen. Ewan.
Yes, Tyrone. Now, it might surprise you to hear this, but this is actually the first time I've ever been in a bookmaker's. Just shows you what a young, innocent man I really am. But that's the beauty of the Grand National. Absolutely anybody can get involved. Now, as you expect, this place has been a hive of activity today. I'm joined by the manager, Darren Smith. Darren, how busy has it been?
Yeah, it's been very busy. A lot busier than usual Friday, but building up nicely for the big day tomorrow, yeah.
And with it being the Grand National, I suppose it's not just your regular punters that are coming in. You must be getting all sorts of people.
Yeah, we see a lot of different faces on the Grand National Day. Old people, younger people, women, guys. A lot of people don't see during the year, so it's a good day. Everyone enjoys it.
And so, do people get confused? I mean, I've got no idea. So, are you having to, act and help them out to show how to do it?
Yeah, usually we'll have a couple of people out in the front line on the day, helping people fill out their slips because they get confused a lot of the each way bets, things like that. So, yeah, we need to be on the ball to keep people right.
So, who's the smart money on? Who's going to get the winner? We're going to see a Scottish winner tomorrow.
There's been a few people back in the Silver by Nature, the Scottish trained horse, but Tony McCoy's horse, Don't Push It, that won it last year. He's a favourite at the moment. He's getting heavily back with us.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. Well, I've got my bet on Big Fella Thanks at 16-1. I think that's the one that's going to romp home. As for now, I suppose it's back to another big fella, Tyrone.
Ewan Weems, there we go. He's never been in a bookmaker. I don't believe that at all. Just for the record, I got Golden Kite in the newsroom sweeper. I think the less we say about that, the better.
I'm sure you're on to a winner, Tyrone.
No,
thanks. Cheers. Now, they were the most famous band on the planet, and tonight a Beatles reunion will take place in the most unlikely setting of Dingwall. But before you leap into your cars, it's the tribute band, the Upbeat Beatles, who'll be performing at the Town Hall. Almost 50 years to the day since the Fab Four played to 19 fans at the same venue. From Dingwall, Dave Donaldson reports.
In 1963 at the Town Hall in Dingwall, they were watched by just 19 people, as popular local band the Mellowtones were playing Strathpeffer on the same evening.
I came to the door
I spoke to the gentleman at the door, who I knew quite well, and asked him to have a look upstairs. Heard the band playing, looked at the 14 or 15 we were in at that time, and said, no, I can't listen to this music. I'm off to Stratford to listen to the Mellotones.
But tonight, 15 of the 19 who did see the Beatles in Dingwall that evening will be reunited, and a plaque will be unveiled to mark the performance by the group. They're going to try to recreate that famous night in Dingwall, and over 200 tickets have been sold for the tribute band, the Upbeat Beatles. You're hoping more people turn up this time.
All of 19 turned up because everyone was down the road watching a band called the Mellotones, who are a local Scots band. Great name, the Mellotones. Fantastic. Yeah, so I don't know much about them. Do you know anything about them, the Mellotones? No one seems to know. I mean, I'm sure around here a few people, maybe they still exist. We can get them playing here tonight. But yeah, it's a great honour for us to do it, and let's hope that we get a few more people tonight.
The Beatles famously played here in 1963, and tonight this town hall will be rocking to the sound of the Fab Four once again. Dave Donaldson, STV News, Dingwall.
Dingwall rocks. Not often we hear that. Time now for a reminder of the day's main news stories. A review's been launched which could lead to a radical overhaul of the Scots legal system. Some of the cornerstones of Scots law, like an accused's right to silence and the need for corroboration, are all under discussion. The convicted killer who went to court arguing for the right to vote in the Scottish election has lost his case. George McGeoch is serving life for the murder of Inverness baker Eric Innes in 1998. And as we just heard, ahead of the Grand National, Scots punters are hoping that Silver by Nature could become the first Scots horse to win the race in 32 years. The horse is owned by St Johnstone chairman Jeff Brown. Well, it's been a warm day here in Aberdeen. It would be great if it lasted through the weekend, Sean.
Yes, you have been enjoying the highest temperatures today in the east of the country. A wee bit of a switch in our wind direction tomorrow. It's a southeasterly, and you know what that means across eastern coastal parts. It means we will see low cloud and har coming in at times. So it will be a lot fresher tomorrow, especially right down on those North Sea coasts. But the highest temperatures tomorrow around the Northwest Highlands, where we've had most of the cloud today, and also around the Murray area as well. Let's have a look at the forecast.
I've been spinning all morning. Could do with a break. Whoa! I think I've just got a second wind.
Well, tomorrow some of us are going to have some very pleasant weather, lots of sunshine and highs of around 20 or even 21 in places. And that will include the west of the country, where we've had this flow of cloud running into the northwest. You remember the air going round the high pressure system in this direction here. So yes, it's been dragging that cloud into the northwest, the best of the sunshine to the east. And look at that across England and Wales. Plenty of sunshine and plenty of warmth as well. And some of that warmth will creep round the high pressure towards us for tomorrow. We'll have a look at that in just a second. But with the high pressure around, the weather is going to stay rather quiet tonight and also tomorrow. A little bit of showery rain around by the time we get to Sunday. So tonight it's largely dry, some clear spells. We have got a few mist and fog patches developing though, and we will find har coming in off of the North Sea later in the night. Low cloud and mist here. So into tomorrow morning, it's a bright but misty start to the day for many areas. Quite a bit of cloud across central and eastern parts. The cloud will though burn back to the east coast, where it lingers really throughout much of the day. It stays misty here, and it will be very, very cool right down on that east coast as well. But elsewhere, we've got the good spells of sunshine. North Highland areas, Murray, up to a very pleasant 20 or 21 degrees Celsius. Yes, fresher down in that east coast and also around the Hebrides too. Then for Sunday, mostly cloudy, especially in the west, with showery outbreaks of rain.
Make the most of the weather with Scottish Power.
And that's all we have time for tonight and for this week. I'll be back with the very late news at 11:30. Join me then if you're still up. We'll of course have bulletins throughout the weekend. There's more stories online. For the moment though, from everybody here, bye for now.
For news and more 24 hours a day, click on to stv.tv.